You found it at 2 in the morning, the way everyone finds them. A real castle. Stone towers. A moat gone green with lily pads. A listing price lower than a one-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn. You start doing the math before you've even finished scrolling the photos. You could sell the flat. You could actually do this. By spring, your name could be on the deed of a 500-year-old chateau in the Dordogne. And you'd wake up to mist on the turrets and answer the question every dinner party asks, so, what do you do? With the only answer that ends the conversation. I live in a castle. Here is what the listing photographs are careful not to show you. The roof is 4,000 square meters of hand-split slate, and somewhere under it, 3 of those slates slipped last winter and let the rain into a beam that is held since before your country existed. To put them back, you need a man with a specific heritage certificate. There are not many of him. The one within driving distance is booked 11 months out, and when he finally climbs your scaffolding, he names the price, not you. You did not buy a home. You adopted a patient who will never, ever get better. On the outside, a castle looks like the ultimate arrival the moment your life stops being ordinary. On the inside, it is the most relentless machine for converting money into nothing that a private person is still legally allowed to buy. On the outside, you own the building. On the inside, the building owns your calendar, your income, and a surprising number of your remaining years. And I want to be fair to the dream, because the dream is real. People do this and love it. Some of them even make it work. So let me tell you the 3 ways this ends, because by the time we're finished, you're going to know which one is walking toward you. Some castles genuinely pay for themselves. Their owners find the income stream, bolt it on, and the thing floats barely, but it floats. Some quietly bleed their owners white over 15 years, one repair at a time, until the family that swore they'd never sell is calling an agent. And some destroy people who never saw the mechanism coming, people who were not stupid, not lazy, who simply did not understand what the word listed would do to them until the first bill arrived with the state's fingerprints on it. Watch which one this is, because the deciding factor is never the price on the listing. Nobody owns a castle, you just fund your turn. Now, castle is one of those words that hides at least 3 completely different businesses inside it, and the size of your mistake depends entirely on which one you actually bought. The first is the castle that is really just a big old house. Unlisted, or lightly protected, structurally sound, rewired sometime in living memory. Expensive to heat, expensive to fix, but it obeys the ordinary rules of property. If you want to put in modern windows, you put in modern windows. This is the forgiving version, and it is the one the cheerful magazine articles are quietly describing. The second is the working estate, the castle that has been turned into a machine that earns. Weddings in the Great Hall, paying guests in the towers, corporate away days on the lawn. The building has stopped pretending to be a home and started being a venue. This one can survive. But the moment it starts earning, a second body of law wakes up and walks in through the front door, and we'll get to what that costs you. And the third, the one this video is about, the one that is cheapest to buy and most expensive to own, is the listed monument. Grade 1 in Britain, Monument Historique in France. The building the state has decided belongs, in a sense, to everyone, and has therefore removed from your control in every way that matters except the one where you pay for it. This is the trap the low prices are advertising. Not because the sellers are lying. Because the cheapest castles are cheap for exactly the reason that makes them ruinous, and it takes a new owner about a year to feel the difference between these 3 in his bank account. Let's start with a number that isn't the problem, the purchase price. You can, right now, buy a genuine castle in Europe for less than the deposit on a modest city flat. These listings are real. One chateau surfaced recently in the range of 190,000 euros, the price of a parking space in some cities. And this is where the newcomer's entire misunderstanding is born, because he reads that number as the cost. It isn't the cost. It's the entry fee to a casino where the chips are priced in decades. Here is the rule the German castle brokers reportedly tell buyers before they sign, almost as a kindness. Take whatever you paid for the castle. Now get ready to spend that same amount 5 to 10 times over, just to make it habitable before it earns you a cent, before you host a single guest. That 190,000 euro fairy tale is a 1 to 2 million euro building site the day the survey comes back. And the single largest line on that survey is usually the one thing you cannot postpone: the roof. On a building this size, a full roof can cost more than you paid for the entire castle, not a fraction of it. More than it. Everything underneath the plaster, the floors, the wiring you'll be told is a fire risk, the heating that barely exists, waits behind that roof. Because none of it matters if the water keeps coming in. and the roof is only the most visible of the systems failing in parallel. Underneath the building runs a drainage system, dug by people who have been dead for centuries, clay and stone culverts that carry water away from the walls, and when they silt up or collapse, the groundwater has nowhere to go but up, wicking into stone walls 2 meters thick and climbing through them by capillary action, the way oil climbs a lamp wick. The electrics, if they exist at all, will be condemned on site. The heating will have to be conceived from nothing. You are not renovating a house with a few tired systems. You are installing, for the first time, every system a modern building takes for granted into a structure the law forbids you from altering to accept them easily. The listing price bought you the right to stand inside the problem. The problem itself is not for sale. It's a subscription. So why is a castle repair not just a big house repair? Why does the same square meter of roof cost 3 to 5 times what it would on an ordinary building? Here is the one mechanism at the center of everything. And if you take a single idea from this video, make it this one. When a building is listed, the state does not simply ask you to look after it. It removes your right to choose the cheap solution. That is the whole engine. You are no longer allowed to solve your problem the affordable way. You cannot swap the rotten single-glazed windows for efficient modern units. You must have the old ones rebuilt. By hand, in the original timber. By someone approved to do it. You cannot re-roof and clean industrial tile. You must use the original slate, laid the original way. You cannot patch the stonework with ordinary cement. You must use traditional lime, mixed and applied the old way. And in France, a state-appointed architect has to approve the method before the work even begins. Every decision that would normally be yours now crosses a heritage official's desk first. And here is the part that turns a rule into a financial machine. The pool of people legally certified to do this work is tiny, and it is shrinking an aging craft that too few young people are entering. In Britain, these heritage tradesmen command day rates that dwarf a normal builder's, and they are booked out months deep. So the price of fixing your castle is not set by you, and it is not set by the open market. It is set by the supply of a few hundred specialists, who know that if you want your wall to stay standing and stay legal, you have no one else to call. You have lost the two things that normally protect a buyer: the right to shop around, and the right to decide that good enough is good enough. And think about what that scarcity does over time. A young person deciding today whether to spend years learning to dress stone by hand or to lime plaster a curved wall the old way is choosing a trade with a shrinking, almost aristocratic client base and brutal physical demands so fewer choose it every decade, and the ones who remain grow more expensive precisely as the buildings that need them grow older and needier. Supply falls as demand rises. That is not a market that corrects itself. It's a market that runs away from you. Nobody owns a castle. You just fund your turn at a price, the state's rulebook, and a handful of aging craftsmen get to name for you. Now, every newcomer has the same clever idea at this point, and it is worth watching it fail in slow motion, because it fails the same way every time. He looks at the certified craftsman prices and thinks, "I'll be smart. I'll save money on the walls. There's damp in the stone cold, weeping patches on the inside of walls 2 meters thick, and the traditional lime repair is slow and expensive." So he does the modern thing. He seals it. He points it and renders it in hard, cheap cement. The way you'd fix a garden wall. And for one summer, it looks fixed. Here is what he didn't know. A solid stone wall has no damp-proof course. It survives by breathing, pulling moisture in, and letting it evaporate back out through soft, porous lime. Cement is a raincoat. It traps every drop of that moisture inside the stone. Come winter, the trapped water freezes, and freezing water is a crowbar. It cracks the face off the stone from the inside, it blows the new render off in sheets, and it drives the damp deeper into the wall than it ever was before. The saving didn't just fail. It manufactured a bigger, more expensive version of the exact problem it was meant to solve, and now you pay twice. Once to undo your own repair, once to do the real one. And the cement trick is only the first-year version of the mistake. The deeper one is baked into the bargain itself. The cheapest castles are cheap, partly because they sit an hour from the nearest certified craftsman, deep in the countryside where land is worth nothing. Which sounds like a saving until every specialist you are required to hire is billing you for travel, for a night's lodging, for the day they lose driving out to you and back. The remote castle doesn't just cost more to fix. It costs more per identical repair than the same castle would an hour from a city, because you are not only paying for the work, you are paying for the distance to the few hands allowed to do it. The castle does not punish poverty. It punishes shortcuts. So you make peace with it. You stop hunting for shortcuts and you start paying properly. And this is where the second tier opens up beneath you, and each layer is harder to climb out of than the one above it. The first layer is simply heat. You are now responsible for warming an enormous volume of uninsulated stone that was built in an age when nobody expected the whole thing to be comfortable at once. You cannot insulate it, the modern way the walls have to breathe. Remember, so most of the heat you pour in leaves through meter-thick masonry and single glazing, you are not allowed to replace. On a large chateau, energy stops being a bill. It becomes a kind of private weather system you are paying to hold back. The second layer arrives the moment you try to be sensible about the first, because the obvious answer to "this costs too much to run" is "so make it earn." Rent the hall for weddings, take paying guests, and the instant money changes hands under that roof, you are no longer a homeowner. You are a commercial premises, and a completely different rulebook opens on your desk. Fire safety law now applies to you in full assessments. Escape routes, fire-rated everything. You must provide disabled access to a building designed by people who considered stairs a defensive feature. You need the certificates, the inspections, the occupancy sign-off. The thing you did to relieve the cost has just added a second full system of cost, and this one comes with legal liability bolted to it. And the third layer is the one that never switches off. The annual running cost. The number that arrives every year whether you had a good year or not. Add it all together, the certified maintenance, the heat, the insurance on a rebuild value that is astronomical, the staff, a building this size, simply demands, and a mid-sized chateau in genuinely good condition runs somewhere between 75 and 150,000 euros a year. Larger or working estates get quoted in the range of £250,000 to £500,000 annually. A useful rule of thumb: budget 1 to 3% of the building's value, every single year, forever, just to stand still. And buried inside that annual number is a cost most buyers never see coming: the insurance. You cannot insure a listed castle for its market value, because market value is not what it would cost to rebuild. If the thing burns, the law says you must rebuild it in the same slate, the same hand-cut stone, the same certified labor, so the insured rebuild figure can tower over what you actually paid, and the premium is calculated off that towering figure, not off the bargain price that seduced you. The cheaper the castle was to buy, the more absurd the gap between its price and its insured rebuild value tends to be, and you pay for that gap every year, whether the fire ever comes or not. Compare all of that to the Manhattan apartment you were mentally selling in the first minute of this video. That runs its owner maybe $5,000 to $15,000 a year. You didn't trade up. You traded a bill for a salary. Let me show you the same castle in 2 different years, because the gap between them is the real product here. Good year. The weather is kind. Nothing structural fails. You host a full season of weddings, the guest rooms stay booked, and the income actually covers the running cost with a little left over. On the kind of annual figure we just walked through, a strong season might clear its expenses and leave you 30 or 40,000 to the good. The first year, the dream and the arithmetic finally agree. You stand in the courtyard in September, watching the light move across the stone, and you think, "We've done it. We've cracked the thing everyone said couldn't be done." And for that year, you have. Now the same castle, 1 year on. One variable moves. A single beam that the last survey marked "Monitor, no immediate action" finally goes. And opening up the roof to reach it reveals the rot ran further than anyone could see from below. Suddenly, you are not doing maintenance. You are doing a major structural restoration, at certified rates, on a state-approved timeline, in the one season you needed the hall open to earn. That single restoration does not cost you the year's profit. It costs you a multiple of it. One major structural bill can swallow several good years in a single invoice. The weddings cancel, because there is scaffolding standing through the Great Hall. The income vanishes in the exact year the single largest bill of your ownership arrives. Same building, same owner, same competence. The only thing that changed was which year you happened to be standing in. In the good year, the machine looked like a business. In the bad year, it looked like what it actually is. And the distance between those two outcomes, not either number on its own, but the sheer width of the gap between them, is the thing nobody prices in while they're doing math at 2 in the morning. Let that land. The width of that gap is the asset you actually bought. And if you are still telling yourself that gap is a beginner's problem, that a smarter, richer, more experienced owner would simply absorb it, I want you to look at the very top of the market. At owners who have every advantage you don't. Consider Chambord. Not a private folly, but one of the most famous chateaux on earth. a French national monument, professionally run, drawing enormous crowds through its doors every year, backed by the full expertise of a state heritage apparatus. Every advantage of scale, knowledge, and revenue that a private buyer could dream of. And in recent years, Chambord has had to launch a public appeal to raise tens of millions of euros on the order of 30 million just to fund the restoration it needs, phase by phase, because even a monument that famous cannot simply absorb the cost of its own survival. In 2026, it raised ticket prices specifically to feed conservation. Sit with that for a second. If a world-famous castle, with 1 million visitors and the French state standing behind it, has to pass the hat to keep its own roof, on what exactly did you think your 2 towers and a moat were going to do? This is not a story about people who bought badly. Up and down Europe, there are families who have held the same castle for 200 years, who understand that building in their bones, who are richer and wiser than you will be on your first day, and who are, right now, quietly trying to hand it to somebody else. Not because they failed, because the machine does not care how good you are. So here's the question that breaks the whole thing open. If a castle is this ruinous, if it bleeds even the experts, even the state, then why do the wealthy keep buying them? Not naive dreamers. People with advisors, with accountants, with every reason to know better. Why does the market never run out of buyers? Because they are not buying what you think they are buying. And this is the part that turns the whole video over. You have been picturing a home, a very large, very old, very cold home. But nobody who succeeds at this treats it as a home. They treat it as an obligation with an income stream welded to its side, and they understand, going in, that the building is not the asset. The building is the cost. The asset is the thing they bolt onto it. The wedding business, the luxury stay brand, the film location, the vineyard whose bottles sell for triple with a real chateau on the label, the charitable or tax structure that quietly reframes the entire loss into something a balance sheet can love. The successful owner never fell for the stone. He fell for the machine he could attach to the stone, and he let the stone be exactly what it is, a beautiful, ravenous cost center that the machine exists to feed. Which means the romance I sold you in the first minute of this video, the deed with your name on it, your castle was the misunderstanding all along. You cannot own this thing the way you own a house. It stood for 400 years before you, and if it's cared for, it will stand for 400 after you, passing from one temporary payer to the next, each one convinced for a while that it was theirs. The castle is not an asset you hold. It's an obligation you host. Nobody owns a castle. You just fund your turn. That line was a warning about money the first 2 times I said it. Now you can hear what it actually means. The castle is the permanent thing. You are the temporary one, which leaves the question nobody wants to ask on the way in, and everybody asks on the way out. How do you get out? This is where the castle is most unlike the apartment you almost sold to buy it. 4 things decide whether you can ever leave, and all 4 run against you. The buyer pool, microscopic. The number of people on Earth who want a listed castle, can fund a listed castle, and happen to be looking in the year you need to sell, is a rounding error next to the queue for an ordinary home. You are not selling into a market. You are waiting for a specific, rare person to walk into view. The time to sell, measured not in weeks, but in years. These properties sit, because the buyer has to be found, not merely attracted. The recovery on everything you spent, brutal. Every certified pound you poured into that roof, every bespoke repair the rules forced on you, you will not get it back at sale. The more you personalize the place to your own dream, the less the next dreamer will pay for yours. And the valuation itself, there are almost no comparables. When there is no recent sale of anything remotely similar nearby, a buyer's bank has nothing to value it against, which makes lending against it hard, which shrinks your already tiny buyer pool a second time. And do not comfort yourself with the idea that you can simply give it away when the numbers finally break you. The families quietly trying to hand their castles on are discovering that even a gift needs a taker, someone willing to inherit the obligation, the running cost, and the state's rulebook along with the towers. A liability does not become an asset just because the price falls to 0. Sometimes the single hardest thing to do with a castle is to stop paying for it. So the exit comes down to a single uncomfortable sentence. You only have to find one buyer, but you don't know when he'll appear, and every day you wait, the running cost keeps running. The meter does not pause while you look for the door. So let me be fair to the dream one last time, because it has earned it. The romance is real. The mist on the turrets is real. There genuinely are people who hold a castle, find the machine that feeds it, and live a life the rest of us only get to photograph. That was never the lie. The lie was only ever in the word own. The people who thrive here are the ones who can hold two truths in one hand: that the building is the most beautiful thing they will ever be responsible for, and that they will never, for a single day, be its owner the way they own anything else. They are its keeper, its current payer, its temporary pair of hands. You do not buy a castle. You are handed a 500-year-old obligation, still warm from the last pair of hands, and you agree, whether you understand it or not, to carry it until it is someone else's turn. The price on the listing was never the cost of owning it. It was the cost of admission to the privilege of paying for it. Nobody owns a castle. You just pay for it, in your turn, and then you hand it on. Next time, we take something small enough to fit in the palm of your hand that you can never truly own either, where proving the thing is real costs more than the thing itself, and the paperwork ends up worth more than the object it describes.